What is good? So November 20th, one of the most anticipated fights to cap off 2021. Terence Crawford defending his WBO welterweight title against Shawn Porter, former IBF, former WBC welterweight champion. Look, whether you are somebody who is a hardcore Terence Crawford fan or somebody who has been critical of his choice of opposition, which I think all of us collectively kind of see that this is not something that is the doing of Terence Crawford as it concerns like him not wanting to fight Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia. If you keep it fair and balanced, a lot of us kind of see what the problem is, and I'll just leave it at that. But let's take everything at face value as it concerns the fight itself. Terence Crawford finally in a fight that is going to answer questions as it concerns his status against other high-level welterweights that we haven't seen him in the ring with since he's, been at welterweight. Shawn Porter is the guy that I guess proverbially stepped over across the street, courtesy of Tom Brown. Look, man, I think this is, as crazy as it sounds, okay? At 34 years old, you can argue this is Terence Crawford's biggest fight, collectively, in his career, period. When you consider Shawn Porter has been in there with the likes of Kell Brook, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and with the exception of maybe Kell Brook, has been right there with all these guys, win or lose. And I think, again, the criticism with Crawford has come in the fact that he has not fought those upper echelon. And I'm not here to talk about the business and the politics and everything. We get it. We've been down. It's like beating a dead horse at this point. But at this stage, Terence Crawford, we all know, has been dying for a notable fight. And I think regardless of what people may think when he says things like, I can go in the Hall of Fame now and based on what I've already done, I'm a 3-time world champion and all. Trust and believe, he knows that he needs to land these big fights to really get into those books and get into the line of when we talk about Hall of Fame and things of that nature, man. It's always derived around the guys that you fight, okay? Because Arturo Gotti's in the Hall of Fame I don't care what anybody says, based on that trilogy with Mickey Ward. You can debate me all you want, but if we talk about accolades, it's not just about divisional championships and things of that nature. It's the fights you were in, like the history you make, and listen, you do gotta win them. Don't get me wrong. But I think for Terence Crawford, he's in a situation right now where Shawn Porter presents kind of that step for people that I guess were critical of him to say, oh, okay, Shawn Porter's a tough dude. If you can get past him, then we'll, it's a measuring stick based on the guys I mentioned that Shawn Porter fought. But that being said, as it concerns the matchup itself, I'm going to try to keep these videos real quick and I think Shawn Porter, like I mentioned with all the other guys, he presents a tough fight for all of them. He's a very physical fighter. He's very tricky at times. I think early in fight, like his quickness is a little bit underrated as far as like his feet. I'm not talking about footwork and placement and things like that. I'm just talking about he can be an erratic fighter at times, and sometimes it's hard to kind of time him, if that makes any sense. But when I look at Terence Crawford and I look at his arsenal, what he can do, a lot of us have been just wanting to see him do it against this level, and we know how good of a fighter he is. And I think with Shawn Porter, while again he hasn't won all of these fights, he's always been in these like, man, this really could have gone either way, or you know, that was a really tough, close fight. I'm gonna say this, okay? Terence Crawford, personally, I feel has the attributes to make this fight against Shawn Porter his proverbial coming out party, okay? I feel Shawn Porter's going to make things difficult for Terence Crawford. And remember, Terence Crawford is he's a late starter. You know, he feels you out, and by rounds 3 and 4, you start to notice like this little switch turns. I feel the same is going to happen here. I think Shawn Porter, again, is an erratic fighter. He's physical, but let me tell you this, okay? Terence Crawford is a lot stronger than he is made out to be. He has a wrestling background that I guess goes over people's heads. I have a family that has a wrestling background, so I know about a little bit about it. It's why these guys, when they fight Terence Crawford, they mention his strength, how strong he is, for not looking like a strong guy. But I also look at the skill set. I look at the traps he sets, how he measures fighters, and he does get hit in times. But I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to see a much more careful Crawford that I think down the stretch, little by little, is going to unleash that dog. And I think he's going to make an example out of Shawn Porter. And he said this in previous interviews where like he didn't want to fight Shawn Porter because he was afraid of what he felt he was going to do to him. And I just think the way Shawn Porter fights at times, he lunges in too much. I for some reason I see Terence Crawford, whether it's an uppercut or like a check hook, I think he's gonna catch Shawn Porter with something and he's gonna hurt him. And I think for the first time in Shawn Porter's career, he's gonna get stopped. I got Terence Crawford stopping Shawn Porter around the 9th or 10th round. I think it's gonna be an exciting fight. I've never seen a boring Shawn Porter fight. I rarely see a boring Terence Crawford fight. It's going to be a high pace, high action. Both guys are going to get hit. I don't think Porter has that power to get Crawford's respect. And when that point happens, it's what I talk about, that switch. And he's going to be turning southpaw, turning conventional at will. And I just think he's going to be a little too clever for Shawn Porter. And I just think he's going to get caught with something. So I got Terence Crawford by a late stoppage to retain his WBO welterweight title. And I think at this point, setting the stage for whatever happens with Errol Spence, that Ugas fight isn't happening. Apparently, WBA is ordering him to fight the mandatory, meaning Ugas. I'm telling you this, man. Don't be shocked if we get Thurman versus Spence. Thurman hasn't fought in 2 years. Spence coming off an injury. Kind of makes sense, right? He wins that fight, Spence. I think Crawford's going to win. This is the time, yo. This is the time. I've been making videos about this fight for 3 damn years. It's time, yo. It is time. But in any case, that is, I went a little longer than I expected, man. But I got Terence Crawford in a good back and forth fight, but Crawford just being that much clever, setting traps, and I really think he's gonna land something on Shawn Porter, and Porter is gonna be really hurt, and I think he's gonna get stopped in around 9 or 10 rounds. That's what I got. So let me know in the comment section who you got winning Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter live November 20th with the Michelob Center on ESPN pay-per-view. So that's what I got. Let me know in the comment section who you got winning this fight. Like, subscribe, all that. I'm back, man.